Have you ever wondered what's worse than being deceived by your own son? It's realizing you aren't just being deceived. You are being replaced. They think I'm old. They think I'm confused. They think I don't hear the whispers behind my old bedroom door, the room they live in now. But they are wrong. I may be 62 years old, but these ears still work. And this mind, oh, it's sharper than the knife they are preparing to stab into my back. My name is Margaret, and I am 62 years old. I live in the house my late husband, David, and I built with our own hands, right here in Boise. This house used to be my sanctuary, a framework of memories built on 2x4s and shared dreams. Now, it is my prison. I spent over 30 years as a senior project manager at Quantum Dynamics. My mind is not slow, it is logical. It is organized. I managed multi-million-dollar projects and teams of engineers. I know how to spot a deviation from the plan, how to identify a critical risk. And my son, Julian, and his wife, Chloe, are a major deviation. They moved in 6 months ago, right after Julian lost his job at the bank. "We're just going to help you out, Mom," Julian had said, his eyes avoiding mine, his hand already on the suitcase I knew he had packed days before. "Make sure you're taken care of." Their version of care felt more like a corporate takeover. It began immediately. First, they took my bedroom, my master bedroom, the one David and I shared for 35 years, the one with the large bay window overlooking the garden I had cultivated myself. "Mum, those stairs are terrible for your knees at your age," Chloe said, her voice dripping with a false sweetness that set my teeth on edge. "The guest room downstairs is so much more practical and safer." So I was moved, relegated to the small, dark guest room by the kitchen, my belongings crammed into a closet that smelled of mildew. They moved their king-sized bed and gleaming white furniture into my space upstairs. My space. From there, my world began to shrink, compressed by their suffocating kindness. My meals were the next thing to be managed. "We're making you a healthy kale smoothie, Margaret," Chloe would announce, taking the frying pan out of my hand as I tried to make my own scrambled eggs. "All that cholesterol is terrible for you." My finances followed. "Just give us access to the accounts." "Mom," Julian insisted, his tone weary, as if I were a difficult child. "It will be easier. We can pay all the bills so you don't have to worry about a thing." And just like that, my independence was signed away in the name of convenience. When my book club friends, women I have known for 20 years, came over last month, Chloe interrupted us 3 times, finally asking them to leave because the noise was giving her a headache. My friends stopped calling. The final piece of their control slotted into place about a month ago. Chloe appeared at my bedside one morning, holding a small white pill in her palm and a glass of water. "A new multivitamin, Margaret," she chirped. "Specially formulated for women over 60. The pharmacist said it's wonderful for your bones." I took it, not wanting to argue over something so small. But within an hour, a thick fog would settle over my brain. I felt tired, lethargic, my thoughts moving like they were wading through wet cement. I started needing naps in the afternoon, something I have never done in my life. I felt dreamy, disconnected, and pliable. That's when I started paying attention. My project manager instincts finally cut through the haze. I started observing, collecting data. And the biggest anomaly was the door to my old master bedroom. It is now always locked. I do not mean they lock it when they leave the house. I mean it is locked when they are right inside it. I will walk past on my way to the laundry room, and the handle will not turn. A heavy, deadlocked click that echoes down the hall. The house is old. The vents carry sound. I sit in my downstairs room, the vitamin fog clouding my vision but sharpening my hearing. I hear them, not arguments, but low, urgent whispers. I catch words that do not belong in my house, words like shipment and authentication. And last night, I heard Chloe clearly, the high-end client is confirmed for Friday. What kind of affiliate marketing involves secret shipments and high-end clients? I confronted Chloe in the kitchen this morning, keeping my voice casual. You two seem very busy upstairs. What is this new business? Exactly? Her smile was brittle, stretched too tight across her face. Oh, it's just Julian's new affiliate marketing thing. Margaret, you know, online sales? It's terribly boring. You wouldn't understand it. Her hand, holding her coffee mug, was shaking. The tension coming off her was palpable. They were lying, and they thought I was too old, too drugged, and too stupid to notice. They thought my mind was clouded. That was their critical error. The fog they had induced was chemical, not cognitive. Beneath it, my mind. The mind that had managed multi-billion-dollar satellite launches was just waiting to be activated. I had identified the anomaly. Now I needed to analyze the risk. This was a new project, and phase 1 was data acquisition. The next morning, when Chloe bustled into my room with her bright, false smile and the small white pill, I was ready. I put a hand to my temple and squinted, as if the light from the hallway was agonizing. Chloe, I feel dreadful, I whispered, my voice intentionally frail. I have a blinding migraine, and I feel so floaty. I think it might be those new vitamins. They're just not agreeing with me. Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. Oh, Margaret. Nonsense. You're probably just dehydrated. They're essential for your bones. She pushed the pill and the glass of water toward me. Here, take this. And I agree. You should rest. You should stay in your room all day. Just rest. Her eagerness was my confirmation. I put the pill in my mouth, her eyes fixed on me. I took a large sip of water, allowing the pill to slide under my tongue rather than down my throat. It was chalky, dissolving quickly, leaving a bitter, chemical taste. I forced a large, difficult swallow, as if taking a horse pill, and handed her back the glass. Thank you, dear. I'm just going to try and sleep. I feel so tired. Of course, she said, her smile returning, brighter this time. You just sleep. We'll be quiet as mice upstairs. She shut the door, and I heard her footsteps retreat up the stairs. I counted to 30. I walked into my small, adjoining bathroom, leaned over the sink, and spit the gritty, white paste into the drain. I ran the water until every trace of it was gone. I returned to my bed, but I did not sleep. I lay in the dark, and for the first time in weeks, the oppressive fog did not roll in. My mind felt sharp, clean. The air in the room was still, and the house was quiet. My room, the one I had been banished to, had one distinct, strategic advantage. It was located directly beneath my old master bedroom. Their room. I waited. For an hour. I heard nothing but the house settling. Then, the activity began. The first sound was the distinct, Sharp rip of packing tape being pulled from a dispenser, followed by the muffled thud of a cardboard box being sealed. Then came a different sound, a rustle, not of clothes, but of crisp, slick paper, like tissue paper, the kind used to wrap expensive gifts, and lots of it. Then, the voices. They were low, but the vents carried their words. Julian's voice was a low murmur, impossible to make out. But Chloe's was sharper, more agitated. She was on the phone. I held my breath, turning my head to angle my ear toward the ceiling vent. Absolutely cannot have a delay, she was saying, her voice tight. The client is flying in specifically for this. There was a pause. She laughed, a short, unpleasant sound. No, don't worry about her. She's taken her pill. She'll be fast asleep until evening. She always is. The new shipment arrives at 3 o'clock. We'll have everything authenticated and ready before the meeting. A coldness seeped into my bones, a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. She's taken her pill. She'll be fast asleep until evening. It was not a vitamin. It was not for my bones. It was a sedative. They were drugging me. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. The drowsiness, the confusion, the thick fog I had been fighting against every single day, it was all deliberate. It was an orchestrated plan to keep me quiet, pliable, and conveniently out of the way. The fear was sudden and suffocating. This was not just filial disrespect. This was not just a selfish son and his greedy wife taking advantage of an old woman. This was a cold, calculated, daily poisoning. This was a conspiracy. My heart was hammering against my ribs. But my project manager's mind cut through the panic. I was not safe in this house. This was not just an investigation anymore. This was an escape plan. I had to get out. And I had to do it without them ever knowing I had woken up. I lay in the dark, my mind racing. The fog was gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. This was a hostile occupation, and I was the target. My project management skills kicked in, define the objective, assess the risks, and secure the resources. The objective was survival and the retrieval of my life. The risk was immediate and severe. The resources, I was isolated. They controlled my finances, my food, my medication. They had cut me off from my friends. I could not do this alone. My eyes drifted to the window, through the curtains, to the small, tidy house across the street. Arthur Reynolds. He was 72 years old, a widower who had lived across from David and me for nearly 40 years. He was quiet, observant, and, most importantly, a retired Boise PD detective. If anyone knew how to gather intelligence without raising suspicion, it was him. While Chloe was in the shower the next morning, her vitamin sitting untouched under my tongue, I used the old emergency phone I kept hidden in my closet, a simple flip phone they knew nothing about. I dialed his number. It rang once. "Arthur," I whispered. "Margaret." His voice was deep, steady. "I've been wondering when you'd call. I've been watching." My breath hitched. "I need help. I need to get out." "I know," he said. "I have a plan. Just tell me when." "Today. But I need a cover story." "I'll be ready." I flushed the chalky pill down the toilet and went to the kitchen. I affected my best, confused but trying expression. Chloe Julian, I just remembered. They both looked up from their phones, their faces a mask of strained patience. "My cousin, Beatrice, in Seattle. She's not doing well. I feel I really ought to go and see her." Maybe for a week. I watched them. First came the flash of annoyance, an interruption to their routine. Then, their eyes met, and a new, almost electric energy passed between them. They were thrilled. "Oh, Mom, of course," Chloe gushed, her smile suddenly genuine, her eyes bright. "That's a wonderful idea. You absolutely should go. Julian, we can get her a ticket for this afternoon, can't we?" "Absolutely," Julian said, already typing on his laptop. "A little trip would do you good. Get some fresh air." They were far too happy. Within an hour, they had booked a one-way flight leaving at 4 p.m. They practically buzzed with excitement, helping me pack a suitcase. Chloe kept patting my arm, telling me how good this would be for me. They were rushing me out the door, desperate to have the house to themselves. Julian drove me to the airport. He insisted on walking me all the way to the security checkpoint. "Call us when you land." "Mum," he said, giving me a brief, stiff hug. He waited, his arms crossed, until I had my ID checked and I had disappeared into the security line. He was making sure I was gone. The moment I was through the checkpoint, I kept walking, right past the gates, down the escalators to the arrivals level, and out the doors to the taxi stand. I did not look back. "Where to, ma'am?" the driver asked. I gave him Arthur's address, just 2 blocks away from my own. 45 minutes later, the taxi dropped me off. Arthur opened his front door before I even knocked. He said nothing, just took my suitcase and led me upstairs. The guest room was at the front of the house, on the 2nd floor. The window was large, and the view was perfect. It was an unobstructed line of sight to my entire front yard, my driveway, my front door, and, most critically, the window of my old master bedroom. On a small table by the window, Arthur had placed a pair of high-powered binoculars and a black, hardcover notebook next to a pen. He was all business. His years as a detective were visible in the set of his jaw. "You're safe here," he said, his voice a low rumble. "They won't see you. They won't even think to look across the street." He tapped the notebook. "Now, the work begins. I want you to log everything. Every car that arrives, every car that leaves. Times, license plates, descriptions of anyone who goes in or out. Don't interpret. Just observe. Just record the data. We'll build the case from the ground up." I sat in the chair, my hands steady, and picked up the binoculars. The hunter had just left the cage and was now setting the trap. Darkness fell. We sat in Arthur's guest room, the lights off, the only illumination coming from the streetlights on the quiet Boise road. Arthur had made us coffee in a thermos, black and strong. My house, my beautiful home across the street, looked quiet, peaceful, a complete lie. We watched. The hours ticked by. 10 o'clock, 11, midnight. The neighborhood fell silent. My eyes burned from staring through the binoculars, focusing on the dark windows of my own bedroom. Arthur sat beside me, patient, his presence a solid, comforting weight in the darkness. He was a man accustomed to waiting for the guilty to make a mistake. "They're comfortable," he murmured, his voice low. "They think you're in Seattle. They think they're free." Just as the clock on the mantel downstairs chimed 2 o'clock, a vehicle turned onto our street. It moved slowly, its headlights off, gliding to a stop directly in front of my driveway. It was a large, black van, the kind used for deliveries, but it had no logos. Its windows were tinted so dark they looked like polished obsidian. I felt my heart kick. "That's it," I whispered. The side door of my house opened. Julian and Chloe slipped out, moving like shadows. They stood on the porch for a long moment, scanning the street. Julian looked left. Chloe looked right. They were nervous, their movements sharp and jerky. They clearly were not expecting to be seen. Satisfied, the street was empty. Julian quickly tapped a code into the garage door opener. The door rumbled open. I expected them to start unloading boxes, to fill the garage with whatever shipment they were expecting. But that is not what happened. The van's side door slid open. 2 men stepped out. They were not delivery drivers. They were tall, dressed in expensive-looking dark suits and overcoats, despite the mild night. Each man carried a small, gleaming metal briefcase, the kind you see in movies, handcuffed to his wrist. My blood went cold. This was not some simple online business. Chloe hurried them along the walkway, past the front door, to the side entrance. Julian closed the garage, plunging the driveway back into darkness, and followed them inside. The side door clicked shut. I trained the binoculars on the upstairs window, my window. Seconds later, the lights flashed on. The curtains were drawn, but they were my old linen curtains, not thick enough. I could see their silhouettes moving inside. 4 of them. Julian, Chloe, and the 2 strangers. I saw the dark shapes of the briefcases being placed on what used to be my dresser. I saw gestures, pointing. They were having a meeting. A 2 a.m. meeting with men in suits carrying locked cases. "Arthur, what is this?" My voice was shaking. "Are they into gambling drugs?" Arthur didn't answer right away. He was staring at my house, his brow furrowed, his detective's mind clearly piecing things together. "Margaret," he said finally, turning to face me. The gravity in his voice made my stomach clench. "There's something else. Something I held back. I didn't want to alarm you until I was sure. Until I knew you were out of that house." I waited. "Last week," he continued, "I saw Chloe. It was downtown, at a cafe. She was meeting someone, another man, dressed just like those 2 in your house. Expensive suit. Sharp. Looked like a lawyer." A lawyer. I was at the next table. I couldn't hear everything. But I'm trained to pick up words. Margaret. And I heard 3 of them. I heard them clearly. He paused, and I could see the anger in his eyes, the protective anger of an old friend. "She was talking to this man about you," he said. And the words I heard were guardianship, cognitive decline, and asset transfer. The binoculars felt like lead weights in my hands. I lowered them. The silhouettes in the window, the men with the briefcases, the black van. It all snapped into a new, terrifying focus. The pieces of the puzzle locked into place, and the picture they formed was monstrous. They were not just running an illegal business from my home. The business was a means to an end. They were building a case to prove that I was mentally incompetent, a case to steal my house, my money, my entire life, right out from under me. The vitamins, the isolation, the worry over my health. It was all evidence for their plan. The horror that had been simmering in my gut for days erupted into a full, icy terror. They were not just trying to replace me. They were planning to erase me. I sat in the dark of Arthur's spare room, the words guardianship and cognitive decline running a cold loop in my brain. The men with the briefcases had left around 4 in the morning, and the black van had vanished as silently as it arrived. My initial fear of a greedy scam was now an icy certainty of a monstrous, multi-pronged conspiracy. They were not just stealing money. They were building a legal framework to erase me, using my home as their headquarters. The vague words on the vent and the silhouettes were no longer enough. I needed hard, tangible proof of what was in that room. We sat watch all morning, drinking black coffee. The silence from my house was absolute. Then, around 11:30, my front door opened. Julian and Chloe emerged, blinking in the bright morning sun. He was wearing a blazer. She was wearing a bright yellow sundress I had never seen before. She looped her arm through his, and they laughed. "Where are they going?" Arthur murmured. A sick, cold realization dawned on me. "It's their anniversary," I whispered. "Their wedding anniversary. They're going out for a celebratory lunch." The sheer, brazen audacity of it celebrating their marriage while actively plotting to destroy my life, funded by whatever was happening in my bedroom, stole my breath. I watched them get into Julian's car. I watched them drive down the street and turn the corner, disappearing from view. "This is it," I said, my voice steady, all the fear burned away by a cold rage. "They'll be gone for at least an hour, maybe 2. Arthur nodded, his face grim. He handed me his cell phone. "It's on. Speed dial 1 is my number. I will not take my eyes off that street. If I see their car, or any car I don't recognize, I will call. You do not argue. You do not stop to grab anything. You just get out. Understood. Understood." I crossed the street, my movements quick and automatic. I did not feel 62 years old. I felt like a soldier on a mission. I slipped around the side of the house, into the back garden, my garden. The roses were overgrown, choking on weeds. Chloe hadn't watered them. I reached behind the large, white quartz stone David and I had placed by the foundation 20 years ago. My fingers brushed against the cold, gritty metal of the spare key. They hadn't found it. They were arrogant. They had taken over my life but hadn't bothered to learn its secrets. The key slid into the back door lock. The click of the tumblers turning echoed in the silence. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The house was dead. The air was thick and still, carrying a strange, unfamiliar odor, a mix of cloying, heavy perfume and something chemical, like new plastic. I stood in my own kitchen, listening. The only sound was the low, electric hum of the refrigerator. It was the loudest silence I had ever heard. I moved through the dining room, my sneakers silent on the hardwood floors. I reached the staircase. I went up, one slow step at a time, my hand gripping the banister. I avoided the third step, the one David always promised to fix, the one that always creaked. I reached the upstairs landing. The hallway was dark, and there it was, my bedroom door. I put my hand on the new, shiny brass knob. I turned it. Nothing. It was locked. A heavy-duty deadbolt. A surge of hot, frustrated panic rose in my throat. I had come this far. I was inside, but I was still locked out. I pressed my ear against the wood, listening for I don't know what. I leaned my forehead against the cool, painted surface, my mind racing. Think. Margaret. Think. You managed projects with 100 variables. This is just one door. And then I remembered. The balcony. My heart hammered. David's study. The room next to mine. It shared the small, second-story balcony. I moved, fast and silent, into the study. They had left this room untouched. It still smelled of old books and David's pipe tobacco. I crossed to the window, the one that faced the backyard. I fumbled with the latch, stiff from years of disuse, and finally shoved the window open. The cool afternoon air hit my face. The balcony was small, barely 3 feet deep, with a wrought iron railing. To my right, not 10 feet away, was the sliding glass door to my bedroom. But there was a gap. The balcony was divided by a structural piece of the wall. To get to the bedroom door, I would have to climb over the railing and walk along the narrow, decorative concrete ledge, a tiny 6-inch ribbon of path, 2 stories above the stone patio. My stomach turned. I looked down, and the ground seemed to spin. But then I looked at the glass door. I thought of the vitamins. I thought of the words, cognitive decline. I climbed out the window, my sensible shoes planting firmly on the balcony floor. I grabbed the cold iron railing with both hands. My knuckles were white. I swung one leg over, then the other. I was on the outside of the railing, my chest pressed against the bars, my feet searching for the narrow ledge. I found it. I did not look down again. I focused on the metal frame of the sliding door. I shuffled, 1 foot, then the next. The wind pulled at my hair. My breath was ragged in my own ears. I reached the door. I released one hand from the railing, my fingers shaking, and grabbed the simple, flimsy latch on the glass door. They had spent so much energy on the new deadbolt for the hallway. They had to have forgotten this. They had to have been this careless. I pulled the latch. It slid open with a soft, metallic snick. It was unlocked. I held my breath, slid the heavy glass door open just enough to slip through, and then pulled it shut behind me. The shush of the door, sliding on its track, was muffled by the thick carpet. I was in. I was inside their fortress. The room was not my room. My furniture, the warm cherry wood set David and I had picked out, was gone. The soft, rose-patterned wallpaper was gone, painted over with a stark, sterile white. The plush carpet had been replaced with a cold, grey, industrial-style rug, where my reading nook and armchair used to be. There was now a sleek, modern glass desk with a black leather office chair. The ceiling fixtures were gone, replaced by harsh, bright track lighting, angled to highlight specific points in the room. My gaze fell on the bed. My bed. It was still there, but it was not a bed. It was a display table, draped in black velvet. It was covered in dozens of items laid out in perfect, obsessive rows. On one side, at least 30 or 40 heavy, gleaming men's and women's watches, their metal bands and faces shining. On the other, jewellery, diamond tennis bracelets, heavy gold chains, and glittering earrings, all nestled in small boxes. I turned to the closet. The louvered wooden doors I loved had been ripped out. The opening was bare, and inside, the space had been converted into a brightly lit shelving unit, exactly like you'd see in a high-end boutique. It was packed, shoulder to shoulder, with handbags, dozens of them. I saw logos I recognized from magazines Celine, Gucci, and many more of a brand I'd never heard of. Veblen, their logos all identical, the leather stiff and perfect. They were fakes. They had to be. Brilliant, high-end, sophisticated fakes. This was their affiliate marketing. This was the shipment and the high-end client. My son and his wife were running an illegal, high-end counterfeit goods ring for the Boise elite, using my home, my respectable, quiet house, as their secret, exclusive showroom. A cold, clear rage, sharp as a shard of glass, cut through my shock. My project manager's mind took over, cataloguing the evidence. I moved to the desk. It was Chloe's. Her laptop was closed. A credit card machine sat next to it. I pulled open the top drawer. It was filled with shipping labels, invoices, and rolls of packing tape. But underneath a stack of receipts, my fingers brushed against a thick manila file. I pulled it out. On the tab, in Chloe's neat, looping handwriting, was one word, Margaret. My blood ran cold. My hands were shaking, not with fear, but with an anger so deep it felt like it would split me in two. I opened the folder. The first page was a legal form, stapled to several others. The title, in bold black letters at the top, punched the air from my lungs. Application for emergency guardianship and conservatorship. My name, my address, my social security number. I flipped the page, and then the next. Attached to the application were several exhibits. The first was a signed medical declaration. I stared at the name on the letterhead, Dr. Silas Vance, M.D., Geriatric Psychiatry. I have never, in my 62 years, met a man named Silas Vance. My eyes scanned the text. The clinical, detached lies that described a woman I did not know. Patient presence with classic signs of rapid onset dementia. Exhibits significant paranoid delusions, including a belief that her family is trying to harm her. Frequently disoriented and confused, prone to fits of agitation. She is fiscally incompetent and no longer capable of managing her own financial or medical decisions. The vitamins, the fog, the lethargy. They weren't just drugging me to keep me out of the way. They were drugging me to create the symptoms, to manufacture the confused, paranoid, incompetent woman described in this file. This document was the weapon, and my own son was holding it. They were not just stealing from me. They were stealing me. They were planning to have me declared legally insane, a non-person, so they could take everything. My hands were shaking, not from weakness, but from an ice-cold fury. I pulled Arthur's phone from my pocket, my fingers working with the precise, methodical speed of my old job. I was not a victim. I was a project manager, and this was data collection. With a cold, precise rage, I pulled out Arthur's phone and began documenting everything. I photographed the guardianship application, the medical fabrication from Dr. Silas Vance, the wide shot of the bed covered in watches and jewelry, and the shelves packed with counterfeit Veblen and Celine bags. I documented every angle. I took pictures of the shipping labels on the desk, the credit card machine, the invoices. This was the what, but I needed the how. I pulled open the second desk drawer. It was filled with cheap drugstore notebooks. I grabbed the top one, a black, spiral-bound ledger. I opened it. It was Chloe's handwriting, immaculate and organized. It was their business plan, and it was their plan for me. She had organized it into phases, like a corporate project. Phase 1, stabilization. Initiate vitamin regimen 1 pill, 9 a.m., daily. Monitor for increased lethargy and mild confusion. Emphasize to her fogginess and forgetfulness in daily conversation. Phase 2, medical foundation. Finalize retainer with Dr. V, $5,000. Provide weekly observation logs for his file. He will draft the primary declaration of incompetence by November 15th. That was next week. Phase 3. Social corroboration. Invite select clients to the house for private showings. Introduce them to M briefly. Later. Solicit affidavits regarding her erratic behavior. They were going to use their own criminal customers as witnesses against me. Phase 4. Legal execution. File emergency petition. Cite Dr. V's report and affidavits. Emphasize M is a danger to herself, fire hazard, fools, fiscal irresponsibility. Phase 5. Liquidation. Sell property. Transfer all assets to Costa Rica holding account. The clinical, detached cruelty of it made me want to vomit. They had been documenting my every move, twisting every interaction, every natural moment of aging into a weapon to be used against me. But the notebook was just the plan. The laptop, sitting open on the desk, held the motive. It was asleep. I tapped the touchpad. The screen flared to life, illuminating Chloe's email inbox. I didn't have to search. The subject line of an email from Julian, sent 2 weeks ago, leaped out at me. The estate? I clicked it. His message was short. C. Just got off the phone with Vance. He's fully on board. He said as long as we keep her on the meds, her behavior will match the file perfectly by the hearing. He said she won't even know what's happening. I scrolled down. Chloe's reply, sent 3 minutes later, was the final nail. Perfect. I've already been looking at properties near the beach in Costa Rica. It's all going to work. She won't know what hit her. By the time she realizes anything, she'll be safe and sound in Willow Creek Estates, and we'll be sipping cocktails. She'll just be a bad memory. Willow Creek Estates. The words hung in the air. The grey, concrete nursing home out by the interstate, the one that smelled of bleach and despair. The place people were sent to be forgotten. This wasn't about money, not just about money. It was about erasure. They were going to drug me, declare me insane, steal my home, and dump my body in a failing facility to rot, all so they could fund their criminal life on a beach. A low rumble from outside shattered the silence. An engine. A car door slamming. My blood turned to ice. Arthur hadn't called. They were early. See? Julian's voice, cheerful and clear, drifted up from the driveway. I told you we'd get a table. Easiest anniversary lunch ever. They were inside the house. Panic, hot and sharp, seized my throat. I looked at the hallway door, the deadbolt gleaming. I was trapped. Then I heard it. Footsteps on the stairs. I'm just going to grab the new inventory sheets, Chloe called out. I'll be right down. She was coming up. I didn't think. I lunged for the balcony. My hand shot out, fumbled with the latch, and tore the heavy glass door open. The shush of the track sounded like a freight train in the silent room. I scrambled out onto the narrow, 6-inch ledge. I heard the key slide into the deadbolt lock of the bedroom door from the hallway. My fingers gripped the cold iron railing. I didn't look down. I shuffled, my feet scraping the concrete, pulling myself along the ledge. I heard the click of the deadbolt sliding back. I threw my leg over the railing of David's study balcony, landing in a heap on the dusty floor, just as I heard my bedroom door swing open behind me. I didn't wait. I scrambled to my feet, ran through the study, and down the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. I flew to the back door, slipped the key from my pocket, and unlocked it from the inside, pulling it open just enough to slide through. I raced across the weed-choked lawn, through the side gate, and sprinted across the street, collapsing against Arthur's front door. He yanked me inside. I looked back at my house, gasping for air. Seconds later, Chloe appeared in the window of my bedroom. She was looking out at the yard, a small, puzzled frown on her face, as if she had heard something. Then, she just pulled the curtains shut, and the room went dark. I stood in Arthur's kitchen, my back pressed against the wall, my breathing still ragged from the run. But I was not crying. The terror I had felt on that ledge had cooled, hardening into something else. It was the same cold, precise focus I used to feel before a major project launch. It was pure, undiluted rage. Julian and Chloe had miscalculated. They thought they were dealing with a frail, confused old woman. They had forgotten I was Margaret, the woman who ran quantum dynamics' most complex projects for 30 years. I picked up my own phone, the one Arthur had retrieved from my bag. My fingers were steady. I did not call the police. I called my lawyer. Her name is Evelyn Hayes. She is not a warm woman. She is a scalpel. She handled my and David's estate planning, and she specializes in asset protection and, as she puts it, combative elder law. Evelyn, I said, my voice as flat and hard as steel. I have a situation. It's an emergency. I am at my neighbor's house. My son is trying to have me declared incompetent and is running a criminal enterprise out of my home. I have proof. There was a half-second pause. I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said, and hung up. When she arrived, she walked into Arthur's living room like she owned it, her briefcase clicking shut behind her. She listened. Arthur, standing by the window, added his observations about the tour deliveries. I laid out the story, from the vitamins to the locked door, to the terrified shuffle along the ledge. Finally, I airdropped the photos from Arthur's phone to hers. She did not gasp. She did not offer condolences. Her expression grew colder with every image. She looked up from the photo of the Willow Creek Estates email, her eyes like black ice. Margaret, she said, her voice sharp. I need you to understand this. This is not a family disagreement. This is not a probate dispute. This is a multi-level, federal criminal conspiracy. She snapped her briefcase open. Arthur, thank you for securing Margaret. From this moment, we are on a fence. She turned to me. They have a plan. Now, we have one. And mine is better, because mine is based on the truth. And I have you. Their plan relies on you being a victim. We are going to prove them catastrophically wrong. Evelyn Hayes did not waste a second. She was a whirlwind of controlled, strategic action. First, she said, already dialing her phone. We sever their access. She spoke to her assistant. File the emergency revocation of all existing powers of attorney for Margaret O'Brien, effective immediately. Get a judge to sign it. Cite elder abuse and immediate financial peril. I want a full freeze on her assets by 5 p.m. She hung up and dialed again. Second, we dismantle their primary weapon. They say you are mentally incompetent. We are going to get an ironclad, court-recognized evaluation that proves you are not. She spoke into the phone again. Dr. Prater, it's Evelyn Hayes. I have a client who needs an immediate, full neuropsychiatric evaluation. Yes, that kind of case. She is being railroaded. I need you today. She drove me there herself, for 2 hours. I sat with Dr. Prater, a kind but intensely thorough forensic psychologist. He didn't ask me to remember a list of words. He gave me logic puzzles, complex financial scenarios, project management hypotheticals. I left with a sealed report, which Hayes read in the car. She nodded once. Just as I thought. He states your cognitive function is in the 99th percentile for your age group. When we got back to Arthur's house, she made her third and fourth calls. This is not a job for the local police, she said, dialing. They're in over their heads. We're going to the source. She got on the phone with a contact she had at the Department of Homeland Security. Agent. Yes. Evelyn Hayes. I have a client, a very credible one, who has stumbled upon a significant Class A counterfeit goods ring. We're talking high-end watches, bags. Yes. No. They're not just selling them. They're using the proceeds to finance a separate fraud. I have photos of the inventory, the ledger, and the application for a fraudulent guardianship. Yes. I'll hold. She looked at me, a grim smile on her face. They're interested. Her last call was to the Idaho State Medical Board. She dictated a detailed complaint against Dr. Silas Vance, citing conspiracy to commit fraud, medical malpractice, and the falsification of records for financial gain. By the time the sun began to set, the entire framework of their plan was being dismantled. Evelyn snapped her phone shut. They're neutralized. Margaret. The money is frozen. Their medical expert is about to be investigated. Their guardianship petition is dead on arrival. So, it's over? I asked, the first wave of relief washing over me. Evelyn looked at me, and her expression was terrifying. No, it's not. Stopping them isn't enough. They tried to erase you. They drugged you. They tried to steal your life and throw you in a hole to die. We're not going to let them just stop. She leaned forward. The HSI agent I spoke to is very interested in their showroom. He's interested in catching them with their high-end client. He's interested in their entire network. What does that mean? It means, Evelyn said, we're going to set a trap. And you, Margaret, are going to be the bait. I spent one more night at Arthur's, sleeping deeply for the first time in months, fueled by the cold, clean energy of the coming confrontation. The next afternoon, I had Arthur call me a taxi. I wheeled my small suitcase, the one I had barely touched, to the curb, and returned to my own home. I paid the driver and walked slowly up the path, intentionally letting my shoulders slump, my feet dragging slightly on the pavement. I was a project manager, and this was the most important performance of my life. I fumbled with my key at the front door, just long enough for Chloe to yank it open from the inside. "Mum, you're back." Her voice was a symphony of false relief. "We were getting so worried you didn't call when you landed." I blinked at her, widening my eyes in feigned confusion. Oh, did I forget? I'm so sorry, dear. The flight was just so long, and Seattle was so grey. I'm just so very tired." Julian appeared behind her, his face relaxed and smiling. They were happy. They were so happy to see me, because my trip had confirmed their narrative. I was the confused old woman who couldn't even manage a simple phone call. I was the perfect, unsuspecting victim. "It's okay, Mum," Julian said, taking the suitcase from my hand. His touch felt like a spider on my skin. "You just rest. We'll take care of everything. Did you have a nice time with Beatrice?" "Beatrice?" I paused, letting my gaze drift to the wall, as if searching for the name. "Oh, yes. She sends her love." They exchanged a quick, knowing glance. It was a look of such profound, condescending pity and triumph that it almost made me break character. Instead, I gave them a weak, watery smile and shuffled past them, heading straight for my small room by the kitchen. I just need to lie down. My head is so foggy. Of course, Chloe chirped, following me. You just get comfortable. I'll bring you a nice cup of tea. And your vitamin. The performance continued. For the next 3 days, I was the model of gentle, cognitive decline. I forgot where I put my reading glasses. They were on my head. I lost my train of thought mid-sentence. And every morning, when Chloe handed me the small, white pill, I would palm it with the skill of a stage magician, pretending to swallow it, only to flush it down the toilet the moment she left. I would then wait 1 hour and begin my performance, slurring my words slightly, complaining of dizziness, and spending most of the day napping. They were in heaven. They were so confident, so relaxed. They barely bothered to whisper upstairs anymore. The plan was working perfectly. Theirs and mine. On Thursday evening, they approached me during dinner. I was pushing mashed potatoes around my plate, humming softly to myself. "Mum," Chloe said, her voice serious, but full of practiced concern. "Julian and well, we've been worried about you. This forgetfulness is getting worse." I looked up, my eyes wide. "It is. We love you, Mum, and we just want you to be healthy." Julian cut in, his voice smooth as oil. "So, Chloe found this wonderful new doctor, a specialist? His name is Dr. Vance." I held my breath. I looked at my son, the son I had raised, as he lied to my face, preparing to send me to my doom. Chloe smiled and put her hand on mine. "He's amazing, and I was able to get you an appointment for this Friday. He's going to help you with this fogginess. He's going to make you feel so much better." "Oh," I said, my voice small. "A doctor? I don't know." "It's all taken care of," Julian said quickly. "And Mom, another thing. This Friday night, we're having a small party. Just a few business partners. It's very important." "A party?" "Yes, but you don't need to worry about a thing," Chloe said, her voice becoming firm. "In fact, with your migraine and your new appointment, it's best if you just stay in your room and rest. It will be loud. We'll bring you dinner. You just lock your door and have a quiet night." Okay. This was it. The final pieces of their plan, and mine, were slotting into place. They would have me officially diagnosed by their fake doctor. And then, while I was locked away, they would hold their illegal sale, celebrating their victory. I looked from my son's smiling, treacherous face to my daughter-in-law's bright, greedy eyes. I gave them the most beatific, grateful smile I could muster. "Oh, thank you," I whispered, reaching out to pat both their hands. "You two are so good to me. I don't know what I'd do without you." I didn't need to fake the single tear that rolled down my cheek. It was a tear of pure, unadulterated rage. Evelyn's words echoed in my head. "Friday is the day. Margaret. The HSI agents will be your new, high-end client. Just play your part, and we will do the rest." Friday night. I sat in my small, dark room, my door locked, just as they had requested. My house was alive. I could hear the front door opening and closing, the sound of polite, low-toned conversations, the clinking of champagne glasses. The party was in full swing. My home, which they had systematically emptied of friends and warmth, was now full of strangers, their co-conspirators in crime. I knew from Evelyn's plan that at least 5 of the customers mingling upstairs were not customers at all. They were highly trained agents from Homeland Security investigations, wired for sound, examining the counterfeit merchandise, and collecting the evidence needed to destroy this operation from the inside. I didn't need to be upstairs to see the scene. I could picture it perfectly. Julian, playing the part of the smooth, successful host, and Chloe, the queen of her small, fake kingdom. I imagined her, standing in my old bedroom, holding a champagne flute, surrounded by the fake watches and bags. I could hear the lie in her voice as she laughed, probably saying the exact words she had written in her email. My mother. Oh, she's downstairs. She's a little confused. Bless her heart. But don't you worry. She'll be in professional care very, very soon. My phone, resting in my palm, vibrated once. The signal. The noise in the house changed. The low murmur of the party was interrupted by the front door opening again, but this time there was no polite greeting. I heard a new voice, one that cut through the air like a razor. It was Evelyn Hayes. Julian O'Brien and Chloe O'Brien. She called out, her voice booming from the entryway. The music stopped. A glass shattered upstairs. I heard panicked, heavy footsteps on the stairs. Then Chloe's voice, suddenly sharp and terrified. Who are you? You can't be in here, get out. We're not guests, Evelyn said, and I could hear her walking toward the staircase. She was followed by 2 uniformed HSI agents. Julian and Chloe O'Brien, you are under arrest for the trafficking of counterfeit goods, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit elder fraud. There was a moment of absolute, dead silence. Then, chaos. This is absurd, Julian yelled, his voice cracking. These are just friends. Really? A new voice said, and suddenly the customers in the house were no longer browsing. HSI, one of them said. Put your hands where I can see them. I heard the unmistakable metallic click, click, click of multiple sets of handcuffs being drawn. Evelyn's voice rose above the confusion, a final, strategic strike. And just so you are aware, as of 10 minutes ago, Dr. Silas Vance was arrested at his private practice for medical fraud and conspiracy. The state is moving for an emergency suspension of his license. That was what broke Chloe. The sound she made was not human. It was a raw, animal shriek of pure rage. No, no, you can't. Mom, Mom! I heard the scuffle as they were brought down the stairs. Her voice was pure venom. Mother, you did this. You're crazy. You're supposed to be sick. You're insane. Tell them. That was my cue. I unlocked my door. I stepped out of the shadows of the guest room. They stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Chloe was fighting against the agent holding her, her face a mask of sweat and streaming mascara. Julian was next to her, cuffed, his face ashen. He was completely, utterly broken. They both saw me at the same time. Chloe lunged, screaming. Julian just stared. His eyes, his desperate, terrified eyes, met mine. He was searching for the confused, foggy, old woman he had been poisoning for months. He was looking for his victim. She was not there. I was not wearing a robe. I was not bent over. I was not foggy. I stood tall, my spine rigid, my hands clasped calmly in front of me. I looked at my son, the man who had tried to erase me, and I let him see exactly who I was. No, Julian, I said. My voice was clear. It was cold. It filled the entire house. I'm not crazy. I held his gaze as the last flicker of hope died in his eyes. I was just cleaning the house. I turned my back on them, leaving them to the law. I walked past Evelyn, who met my gaze with a single, respectful nod, and I went into the kitchen to make myself a fresh pot of coffee as the red and blue lights washed my living room clean. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from, so please leave a comment and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary and like this video. And if you really want to support the channel, hit that hype button so more people can hear this story.